that certain topics of discussion may not be comfortable for all listeners. Certain viewpoints may not reflect those of our partners, sponsors, affiliates, our hosts, or that of our guests. We would like to encourage everybody to keep a respectful and open climate of discussion for all topics, no matter how disturbing they may be. So viewer discretion is advised.
Discoveries mankind has ever experienced.
And that is why we bring you the Bald and Bonkers Show.
Baby, you can get on my boat and make a rock, yeah.
Hey, everybody, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Bald and Bonkers Show. What do you say? Who's that you're looking at? Mike the Naked Bigfoot. I am hosting tonight with Chris. Chris,
yes.
They made the unfortunate mistake of asking me to come on and host with them tonight.
I wanted a legend in the paranormal to come on and show me how it's done tonight. You know, I mean, we're talking about a special location in the world, and why not have an amazing co-host to talk about this location, you know?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about something really cool tonight. Just to warn everybody, you may have heard the warnings at the beginning of the show. But for those who are not aware of this, your humble guest host tonight does have and Chris can testify to this.
Oh, yeah.
I do happen to say on occasion when I'm speaking. So if you have any small kids in the room, please ask them to leave or watch or wear headphones where they will not be exposed to the naughty language. Because I'm not saying it to titillate. I merely use such language because it's part of my vernacular. But I'll try because I love the Bald and Bonkers guys so much. I will do everything in my power to limit the use of the word fuck tonight. So.
Look, it's an adult show. It's for over 18s anyway, and you can say fuck as much as you want.
Oh God, dude, no. Apparently, fuck is not the bad word, but when I use phrases like rape ghost, that's what gets me.
Honestly, I loved that one when we were talking about paranormal frauds. I loved the one that when you come on, you were talking about the woman, and that was the best, you know.
Yeah, apparently when I talk about rape ghosts, that's a bridge too far. But me saying fuck every other word is not.
and of course, Mike, you also play another special game, don't you?
Yes, and we can play that tonight. Everybody who's watching this show now, watching it live, and are not aware of the Naked Bigfoot drinking game. But every time you hear me, or even my dearest co-host Chris say the following. That's a story for another time, or that's a story for another day. Please take a sip of your adult beverage of choice. If you do not imbibe adult beverages, then please and want to play the game tonight, please take a sip of your non-alcoholic beverage of choice. And if you are drinking with us tonight, I do ask you, because I'll guarantee by the end of this show, you will probably be drunk as frack. See, I didn't say the other word. So please do not drink and drive.
Honestly, I think tonight's going to be amazing because Mike has also researched this location, and I've researched this location because I've downloaded a large quantity of photographs of this location. So, Mike, where is the location we are discussing tonight?
If I pronounce it correctly, it happens to be on the continent of Europe.
Yes.
The country of Italy, more specifically, one of the lagoons. It's an island in one of the lagoons off the coast of Venice. Well, off the coast of Italy, Venice. And it's known as, correct me, Chris, if I'm wrong, but it's pronounced Poveglia Island.
Yes, it is. I actually had trouble pronouncing it too. That's why I gave it to you.
I know just enough Italian to be an asshole, so that's why.
There you go. I've actually downloaded a picture of it to show everybody our viewers.
It is, and see, guys, it's not very big. When I call it a lagoon, it's because that's what the fine folks of Italy call it. They have, of course, they're not a landlocked country, as everybody well knows. They have tons of coastline, but this is one of the smaller islands in the Venice area off the coast of Italy. It's actually very, very small, but it has a very large and very pronounced and dark history behind it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, where will we start? What part will we start? Will we start off with the plague, Mike?
Well, we can start talking about, because during the time, and this is true in just about every country that has a coastline and the islands off of it, whether it be in Europe, Asia, and even in Hawaii with the island of Molokai. Every country during a certain point in its history, especially during some of the large plague outbreaks, whether it be the bubonic plague, whether it be the Spanish influenza, they always had plague colonies, these various communities did, to isolate the infected from the non-infected, which pretty much was a death sentence for anybody that was sent to these colonies, to these plague colonies. And this particular island was used as, I remember I mentioned Molokai and Hawaii here in the United States. That is actually the only plague colony that we had here in the United States. And it wasn't exactly a plague colony, it was a leper colony. And I've actually spent a great deal of time on Molokai, and I'll have to do a show and talk about it later, but Molokai is a scary haunted island. Lots and lots of islanders who were sent there, they died at that leper colony. And the same thing happened here at Poveglia Island. People were sent there to pretty much die, to keep away from the healthy people. Well, mainly because they didn't understand how diseases like that work. Just because you're isolating people on an island doesn't mean the infection is going to stay on the island. You're not getting rid of the infection, you're just getting rid of the infected. Yeah,
I mean, I've actually got some photography. It's not photography, it's obviously artist illustrations, because they didn't have, cameras in their days. You'll know this one, Mike, obviously with the plague mask.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the plague masks, which were famous. And if those who are not aware of how plague masks work, that long snout that was on them was it was filled with something that was pleasant smelling.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it was supposed to only keep them healthy, but also keep them from throwing up and getting sick from the smell of death and infection that they were walking through. So. And they cover themselves, of course, from head to toe to keep from making contact with someone. So, what was that?
I was just going to say, here's actually, you're talking about the bodies. There you go. There's obviously an artist illustration of the bodies. They would put them in the carts. They would take them to the waterfront. They would put them on a boat, and then they would take them to the island. And can you imagine what that looked like? I mean, seriously.
They learned this from their time with the Black Plague. Was during the Black Plague, the bodies built up in cities, And Italy was famous for this, especially Italy. They learned from that the bodies just kept building up and building up in the streets. That not only did they have to deal with the plague, but they had to deal with the sickness that came along with the all the dead bodies decaying out there in the middle of the street. So that's one of the reasons why they chose to begin to ship the bodies of the dead and the semi-dead to this island location to be to be dealt with.
Yeah, and it's actually, I was reading something here, and I know you're going to be doing a show soon on vampires, aren't you?
Modern vampires.
Yes, modern vampires. But did you read the story about the vampires in Venice? About the island? But it was superstition then. It was when they were throwing the bodies into the pits, right? Some of them, because he decomposed, their bodies were breaking down because they were dead. Blood was coming out their mouth, and their superstition was that, what's the word I'm looking for? It was that they were scared, obviously, because they were on this island and there was so much death. And actually, I've got a photo here of like a mass grave, right? And a lot of the archaeologists that have been digging up, they've found a lot of the skulls were like rocks in their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and seemingly it was because they thought they were vampires, right? And they thought they were going to come back. But here's what do you think of this, Mike? Everybody.
Oh, number one, it's completely tragic.
Oh yeah.
But there were no care to the burial practices then, and to both the cremation practices and dealing with the dead. Then they didn't feel it necessary to treat their bodies with care. No respect, no care. And if you died in such a horrible fashion with that plague, and then your body was basically was either burned or left to rot above ground, or placed in these huge charnel pits to decay amongst all these other dead, that creates insane amounts of crazy of energy that literally bathes the soil around. Yeah, it bathes the soil around them.
Yeah, I mean, here's one of the pits that's been recently. It was workmen. I mean, there was somebody actually thought they could turn the place into a resort, and they actually dug away one of the tombs. They actually slid away a concrete kind of slab, and this is what they found when they lifted it. So
many bones where they showed no care. They just had to. They had to get them off. They had to get them out of the ground. Had to get them off the ground, and shove those bones away. And they had no final rites behind them. I mean, it's something, and I have to use a modern reference. If anybody who's seen the original movie Poltergeist, and you had all the bodies that were rising up out of the swimming pool that was being dug. It reminds me of that all these corpses that were treated horribly, rising up out of the ground in these huge and horrible and terrifying ways. And I have to think the people that opened up these makeshift crypts, you can't help to think what they released when they did that.
Oh my God.
Because as long as they were stoned up or walled up in some way or doored up in some way, they were confined. The spirits were confined to that area. But now they've opened it up.
Yes.
And you have all these bodies that I doubt are ever going to find any real peace, because number one, they can't be identified.
Yep.
And number two, no one's going to take time to bury them properly with the proper rites behind them.
That would take forever. That would take forever.
It would.
Unless you do it in mass, but...
Well, they could do a true mass burial or mass consecration.
Yes.
But that's really hard to do on a place that has got a history of such violence and evil behind it.
I mean, it's quite interesting you say that, because it wasn't just the plague that was evil. I mean, there was the doctor on the island that liked to experiment with the residents that was a psychiatric hospital. I think it was from the 1800s onwards, and he used to experiment. Drilling into their skulls and stuff, yeah.
He even would do it to himself to alleviate quote unquote headaches. He would put small holes into his own skull with that. So the legend goes about him. That he did love to experiment on that subject. And what made matters even worse, I think that not only did Venice or the country of Italy, they actually, in a sense, covered it up. Because when people talked about the island or people being shipped to the island to these mental facilities.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They were telling everybody that it was a resort island.
I know. I've actually. Oh my God!
If you went there, you went there to get better. You went there, but you never came back. This was the island of Dr. Moreau in the worst possible way. If hell had a soundtrack, it would probably be this doctor's.
I've actually got some photos of outside it and inside it. Now, obviously, this place is forbidden. I mean, the locals are afraid to go into this island because they say it's that haunted. I mean, obviously, there has been ghost hunts on the island, famous ones like Ghost Adventurers, but that's when they started off in their younger days. Was that not their younger days before they all split up?
That was in their younger days before they started making more and more archaeological discoveries about it, until more records started being unearthed about the place. They only knew during the time that Zach and his crew were there, they only knew a fraction of what went on that island. And it's since the history has been pretty much to the dismay of the Italian government. This is a shame they cannot cover up like they had been in the past.
I was reading an article on this, and this is what they were going to do a couple of years ago before the outbreak and stuff like this. They were actually wanting to turn it onto a port for the big cruise ships to come along. And they were wanting to, and so it'd be like a big restaurants and a holiday park. Can you imagine building? I mean, seriously, can you imagine doing something like that?
This is like Disneyland in hell, okay? This has become a macabre attraction. I have to say I'm both fascinated and disgusted by it at the same time. I'm not saying that I wouldn't go on the cruise ship, and I wouldn't maybe take a tender over there to visit the island. I'm saying I would probably end up doing that. But I probably wouldn't go over there on a tour with somebody going, and now we're walking, and as you can see, there's 50 skulls stacked up here. This is something, if I went there, I would have to wander away from the tour group and explore the island by myself. I couldn't do it that way. It would bother me too much to do that.
You see, that's the thing. Now I know what went on there.
Yeah.
I would want to go on an investigation standpoint, but I would not go just as a tourist. Because I think it's not just that, it's all the people that's died there. It's like, there's the island, the burning island. That's a massive grave. And there's people that want to go there. I mean, it's and
you have to remember the people they cremated, both at the institution and during the times of the plague, and also it was wars fought there during Napoleon's era, during the Napoleonic Wars. They say that the topsoil of that island is 40 to 50% human remains.
Yep.
It's composted human beings. That soil is. I mean, you could probably grow some amazing marijuana on that island. Can you imagine that if you grew some marijuana on that island, dude? Some good old pot. I mean, can you just just from telling people I grew this in the remains of a human being. I grew this.
Don't be putting MDAs, dude.
I mean, dude, how you could sell that? That'd be some haunted pot, dude. That stuff would sell like mad. You would be rich. People would be beating down your door to get some of that bud that you'd be growing on the island. I know. I'm probably going to burn in hell for what I just said. But I'm trying to be practical here,
It's true. Well, here's an interesting picture. Right? Here's an interesting picture here. This is obviously the outside at first. I mean, look how overgrown that is. Look at the vines. It's just
Nature's trying to take it back. It's trying to take it back. It's like nature's trying to hide the shame that is there, trying to hide the misery that is there. It's trying to cover it up. It's trying to cover up the decay there.
And here's
that's what I feel when I see that. And then it looks innocuous when you look at it. It looks almost bright and cheerful, but can you imagine when the sun goes down, how that energy changes in that room? When the shadows get long, when the sun moves away from that window, how dark that room is.
Oh yeah,
absolutely dark.
And here's another one. This looks like a portal to hell or something, doesn't it?
It really does look like a doorway to someplace you really don't want to go. I'd have to say I would really have to screw up my courage to go through that. But you can see again, nature around it is trying to cover up the sins of that island. But to no great effect because we have people are there exposing the sins of that island, which I think is a good thing. And see, that's just bad there. Oof.
See, that's obviously, I was trying to figure out what that was. I mean, I don't know what that is. Andy in the chat, what is that? I don't know. It's like something weird chambers. I don't think it's a crematorium.
Are you sure about that? Because look at, it could be a wellness chamber, but the doors are too thick on it. It could be a wellness. And for those who don't know, old Victorian, medical, psychiatric quackery, wellness chambers were not good. They cause more damage than good. But you look around the inside of how that's lined. Does it not remind you of like something where you'd have gas come in, like and cremate a body? I mean, that it really, really strikes me as a cremation facility.
I sat and studied this for actually a while. I actually searched it and I couldn't really find anything on it because this is not the only one of this. It looks weird because you've got like a chamber that would take
and look
you
at the things that actually roll up inside of it there.
That's
like they would hold body parts. I mean, it really does. Now it could also be their form of a washing machine too. But I strongly suspect that's some sort of crematorium. That's some sort of cremating facility. If nothing else, to burn the flesh from the bones and then stack the bones the way they were stacked.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was near like a real crematorium. It got rid of the flesh and left the bones. Then they take the bones.
That would be the biggest. That'd be the biggest problem for them is the flesh. When all the rotten decay from that would be the biggest problem with that.
There's a lovely snake one there, and that shows you what it's like because it's brick lined all the way around about it.
But that's classic Venetian architecture too. If you look at it, it's actually quite beautiful. With all the tall floor to ceiling windows. I mean, that's classic Venetian architecture. It's and with the way the stonework works around it too, it's absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, you see where the water is lapping up against the bricks, how dark that water is around it. That just gives you a hint of what, whatever horrible things are now, permeating the soil, they're now leaking into the water around it. I mean, it's just all bad. It's just all bad.
What do you think of this one?
That's beautiful. Again, that's another, what, this is what would be, this is me. If I'm looking at this, like if I was walking through and touring it. The first thing I would say was this is actually a beautifully built room. It's absolutely gorgeous. This room is. But then you think about that you're surrounded by all this beauty, but then you have all this horrible things that this doctor did to these people in this building around all this beautiful stuff. And it goes from being beautiful to hideously beautiful, tragically beautiful.
Can you imagine how that changes at night?
Oh yeah, that gets so dark. But you see, there's only light on either side of it, behind it and in front of it. So when the sun went down there and you'd have just the flickering light that would be in there, that would be absolutely terrifying. That would be suffocatingly terrifying.
Yeah. Here's another one. Tell us what you think of this one. You can see the vines again.
Dude, that's just spooky as fuck right there.
But you would think that, actually.
I'm just saying, that's just spooky as fuck. I have unfortunately walked down places like that where nature was trying to conceal the sins like that of a place like that. But that's a story for another day, boys and girls.
Everybody, cheers, everybody. Yeah.
Take your sip.
Take your sip, everyone.
But it never fails that you know the natural world tries to cover up the hideousness and the inhumanity that mankind has done to itself. Nature always comes back to try to cover that up, and I'd never understood the weird symbiotic relationship that nature has with that, but it's there. Well, if there's somebody out there, please explain that to me.
Mm-hmm. Please send an email or a message to Mike the Naked Bigfoot. He's on Twitter. Please visit his channel also, and he'll tell you some tales of when the video you did the other night was awfully good, and you're telling us about your suitcase you carried about you. But that's a story for another time.
That's definitely a story for another time. I sold drugs, but they were not synthetic. They were all
natural.
I only deal with natural drugs.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. Now, this does look creepy.
And you see, that feels like something bad. You know, something bad has happened there. It does when you look at it.
That's
even no matter how much light comes through, look at how bad it is. And notice it doesn't have nature creeping in through those broken windows either. Even nature avoids this area. The animals and birds and stuff that live on that island are avoiding this area right here. So something bad has gone on here. Something really, really bad that stained this place.
Oh yeah. I found one that's quite interesting actually, and it's a wee bit of darkness to it, but it's also, I think it's got like a bit of lightness to it. Here, take a look at this one.
Do you know what that first reminds me of when I see it? When I look at that?
What's that?
That looks like some M. Night Shyamalan shit right there. That's a scary staircase right there.
And it's got that kind of weird kind of vibe about it, hasn't it? I mean,
it does. It really does. It doesn't look like it was even a cheerful place back when it was being used and being kept up. It doesn't look like it was cheerful at all. It looks quite the opposite of that. In fact, there's a series called American Horror Story. There was one called the second season. It was called with the Insane Asylum. The Insane Asylum. That reminded me of the center of the Insane Asylum with the staircase there. There was nothing.
You haven't seen all the pictures yet.
Positive about that.
I've got lots, and I know I like to cheer you up. You know, this is quite an interesting one. This is now obviously it's a real photograph, but photography wasn't around in, I would say, the 17th century, but it was in the 18th. Was it the 1850s photography was invented? So this is when I'm thinking this must have been.
Well, it went from the camera obscura, where it went from a camera obscura to an actual type of photography with cyanotyping and such.
This is interesting. Look at
that. That's a daguerreotype right there. And that's just frightening right there altogether. There's no joy in that room whatsoever. For those, I really advise you to look up what the daguerreotype was, because the daguerreotyping was actually done originally for things like this, for medical facilities and for battlefield photography. Daguerreotyping was. The bad thing is daguerreotyping, the chemicals used in that usually kill the person early in their life. But that's a story for another time. You do know.
Everybody, drink.
You do. For those who are not aware of this yet, I do like to ramble when I talk. I like to go off a little side.
I wanted you in. Here's an interesting one for you, Meg.
Look at that chair right there, dude.
I know.
Yes. That just tells you, something bad happened in there. Somebody got fucked up in that room right there.
Yeah.
And you see the vines starting to come through the windows there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine how claustrophobic it would be if you went in there and it was at night and there's no light coming through those vines whatsoever? How completely terrifying that is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, can you also imagine how completely terrifying it was for anybody who was committed to this place?
Oh my
And they were
God.
sitting in a chair like that by themselves in a room like that with only a few windows like that looking out into pretty much nothing. I mean, that island was so small. It still is so small. When you looked out the window, you were in a prison.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah,
were
in prison.
on the Venetian version of Alcatraz. There was no way for you to escape.
I know. I mean, you think about it, Mike. You're in there as a patient, right? Like, you're in there as a patient. Can you imagine the spirits walking through the hallways? And they're like, oh, I can see spirits. And the doctor's like, don't be stupid. Take them up to the special room where they do experiments on them.
They get another hole drilled in their head. Or they go through, cold and hot wraps in an ice bath. I mean, all kinds of horrible things would happen to them because up to the point before it became, like you said before it became a mental institution. And I say those words with, in quotation marks because it was an asylum in the worst way that was disguised as a medical facility to get people well again.
Yeah,
and ran by their version of Dr. Mengele, who liked experimenting on people. So
that's what I did read when I was learning about this place. A lot of families that had kids with learning disabilities were sent to this island, and they'd done medical experiments on them. And this is Down syndrome kids and stuff like that. They used them for medical tests just to see what they could do to them. I mean, the horrors of that that's worse than the Nazis.
Well, dude, they did that in Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina with the hill folk, with the mountain folk, with the people here in Appalachia. Right. They actually, not only did they sterilize large groups of mountain folk so they would never procreate or but they also, the ones who were not as educated as they thought they'd be, they labeled as dumb, as a psychiatric term, dumb, which meant they were their form of mental retardation. And they took them to some of these, especially here in Virginia. There's a very large Virginia here in Southwest Virginia, where they did experiment on people they considered mentally ill or mentally disabled. And they did that to a lot of the mountain folk they brought there. They brought them there and did horrible, horrible experiments to them. So I can only imagine what would be like if you were a member of a family and then the family looked at you and said, well, there's obviously something wrong with you, so we're going to send you away to, a place to get better at, knowing full well that they're sending their loved one off to a place to die horribly at.
Here we have another picture.
See,
I think this is the laundry room or something like that. There's like a washing machine or something in the corner there.
Now they did a lot of. Oh, I got to use the fucking term right because it's not coming out of my head correctly right now.
Oh, what is that?
They did a lot of water therapy to people there too.
Yeah.
And some things like this were used to immerse people in, and hydrotherapy. There we go. Damn, why was it so fucking hard for me to use the word hydro? They took them for hydrotherapy, and that kind of reminds me of a place where they would take someone to do hydrotherapy to. And pretty much it was, their version of the psychiatric version of waterboarding people to make them better, to make them sane.
Do that again. They don't put them inside like a tank of water and then just shut the door. And it was pitch dark, and the water was all round about them or something like that. And after like a little while, you don't know if you're like floating, or you don't know what's happening. It's because there's no time.
Dude, sensory deprivation chambers. They would put people in there, and those would literally drive people insane being in those sensory deprivation chambers. So if you weren't crazy before you went in there, I mean, you have nothing. You have no contact physically. I mean, all 5 of your senses are officially muted. And all you have is your own mind and your own thoughts to dwell on. And that will drive you fucking crazy all by itself.
Oh, yeah.
So think of the madness that was created there. The utter madness. If you weren't crazy when you went in there, you were crazy, very shortly after a few treatments. So
I'm just going to check the chat there. I'll look at the chat. People in the chat. We'll take some questions in a little while, guys. I just want to get through these pictures, because I've just got that many pictures I want to show Mike. Because I think, this one's quite interesting, and it's like, what's your first thoughts when you see this?
I actually think the way it looks now, it's quite beautiful the way it looks now. But I'm picturing in my head, take away nature that's coming in there to cover that all up.
Yes.
How stark that room must have been. How hard that stone room must have been. Can you think of, the amount of, rage and anger and insanity that just coats those walls around it, that these plants are feeding off of now? I mean, those plants just for those who don't know, that the natural world absorbs, energy from the unnatural world as it grows. And it's growing in a place of where there's all this evil and death and rage and violence. So these plants are soaking that all up. I would never pick a fucking flower and take it home with me from that place. I'm just saying that.
And that's why I've always thought that.
That's why you should never take flowers from a gravesite. You should never take flowers from a gravesite. Ever.
I've always wondered that. Because I've always wondered, right, say you go to like a battleground, right? And say there was 20,000 troops died in that battleground, and there's flowers growing, you think, oh, what pretty flowers those are. I'm going to take some of them home to my wife. That can be a bad idea, because obviously you could be taking home some of the dead.
Well, when you think about the classic form of you're taking home something that could turn into something bad. You're taking something that was grown in a place that was watered with someone's blood, that was watered with anger, that was watered with despair. And it now dwells within this plant. It's nourished this plant. So it's going to, as it fades, when you take it home and as that plant fades, it's releasing all that negative energy that it's absorbed from its surroundings into your house. And that can do a lot of things to you. It can make you sick. It can make you hallucinate. It can actually make you have moments, phantasmagoric moments. It's a big word, folks. You need to look it up.
That's a big word,
But phantasmagoric moments is where for very brief moments, the world around you is not your world anymore. It becomes the past. You experience a past moment that assaults all of your senses. To you, it's completely real, but it's actually a phantom moment that's happening. Yeah. But it's assaulting all five of your senses at the same time, to where you believe it's happening. You're immersed in it right at that moment. And it's not until the moment ends is when you realize that this was never really happening. But at the time it's happening, your senses are telling you this is real. You're in it. You're no longer in your time. You're no longer home. You're experiencing this. And shit like that happens. And it's utterly terrifying. See, I had somebody steal a gravestone one time.
Really?
They stole a gravestone. They were goth kids, not the South Park goth kids, but they were dumbass. They were a dumbass goth family. They stole a headstone, and they had it on display in their living room. And they were having these phantasmagoric moments, like they were standing. They'd be in the room, and then suddenly they're on a scaffold being hung. And what they were experiencing was the death of the person whose stone that was. And they were somebody that was hung for a crime they'd committed. And they were hung, and they were experiencing the effects of being hung almost on a nightly basis. They would, when it ended, they were still gasping for air. They could still feel, you could still see rope burns around their necks. And they asked me what was going on. And it didn't take me long to figure out that, hey, where the fuck did you get that tombstone from? But they were having a phantasmagoric moment, which was getting more intense and more intense every day. And I do believe that if they had left it in there without removing it and returning it and apologizing for returning it, all that energy and rage that was coming from it would have eventually killed them. And I think when you take flowers from a grave, you're bringing some of that tragedy home with you, and it could hurt you.
Yeah.
It could hurt you.
It's quite interesting, right? I know, but just listen to this, right? There's something that's popped into my head that I've always thought about, right? In Holland and France, they grow a lot of flowers for sale in shops, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those flowers are growing where the World War I battlefields was. Could they, in theory, have the energy of the dead soldiers?
Yeah, you could take some of that tragedy home with you. And you can experience, while it's in your home before it dies, you can be experiencing as that flower slowly fades and dies. Or worse yet, if you have a tree that was grown in that soil and you plant it in your yard, then you're never rid of it. But as that flower dies, it's releasing that energy into your house and into you personally, and it will affect you. The most minor thing it'll do is make you sick, and you have no idea why you're sick, except for that, once that flower is dead and gone and that energy's been expelled into your house and it begins to fade, you start feeling better, and you'll think maybe you had the green apple splatters or something, but actually you have a version of what's called ghost sickness.
My God.
I need to do a show about ghost sickness.
Yep. If that's a story for another time, everyone.
That's a story for another day, guys, boys and girls. Ghost sickness. It's actually a real thing, ghost sickness is. It's been documented for centuries, ghost sickness. It's been called many things, but it's called ghost sickness, where the dead can literally, the dead and things associated with the dead and the paranormal can actually make you sick.
What do you think about this photo? Now, I think this has something to do with the laundry, right? Because it is a big ass rolling thing. It's not as if they put someone through that, because it'd be very thin. It's, what I'm saying, it's not a giant joint rolling machine or something like that.
No, I think I know. It looks like a press. It looks like a laundry press. Like you would go through it after you wash something up.
Yeah.
But look at all the cloth around it is in tatters and everything.
Yeah.
It's so surreal to look at that, because they didn't have some of the more sane people worked in places like that. Psychiatric, that institute, that mental facility didn't have that many workers at it. The ones they did have with them were pretty much Dr. Frankenstein's version of Igor running around doing whatever he said to do. But they also helped spread the stories and the rumors about that doctor as well when they would leave the island to go home.
Yes.
And tell the stories about the stuff that he did there.
I mean, why don't you tell everybody about that stuff? Because that stuff's just crazy. I mean, I've actually got a photo of the place they had bricked up. The clock tower. That looks beautiful, but
it is beautiful. But you know what? The most tragic things are usually the most beautiful. And you see, this was modern Venetian architecture. It was absolutely gorgeous. Stunning. But you have all that light there, though, to help illuminate the horrible things that he would do, cutting into people. And even during the 17th century and so on, it was considered barbaric to drill holes into people's skulls to release the pressure. But he did it. And think of it this way, because there was actually, I can't think of what it was called. You could actually take a nail gun and put, I think, from what I saw, you can put about 25 to 30 nails in someone's skull to penetrate the brain before they die. So you can imagine how many holes he could put into somebody before they died.
Oh my God! I mean,
and they were alive, and it changed them. I mean, because your brain controls everything about you, and it changed them. But they were completely aware of everything that happened to them when he did it. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's quite bad. Here is a picture of the tower in question, how it was all bricked up.
Now he was supposed to. One or two things happened. This is how this doctor died. some say, as the legend goes, I have to say it that way, as the legend goes, he either jumped from air and committed suicide, or that it was the spirits of the place seeking revenge that took him up the steps to the top of air and flung him from the top up there. Either way, he met a most just end. But I think his soul is probably still there in some sense of the word.
It makes you wonder if it's torturing the souls that are trapped there.
Well, they were terrified of him. How could you not be terrified of him? So I'm wondering, would you still be terrified of his spirit if it still walked the halls, wanting to continue to do experiments? And then these spirits, would they hide from him, from his spirit? Or would they gather together and make him relive him being tossed from that tower every night? That's something fascinating. I wish somebody would go there, and a really good and an actual medium would go there.
Yeah.
And that who didn't mind losing their mind for a brief period of time. So I'm pretty sure that any good psychic medium who went there would probably fucking lose their mind within 5 minutes. So.
Well, there you go. That's for someone in the chat that's a good friend of mine, and she's a really good medium. Her name's Lisa Fry. She's in the chat there. Lisa, you need to go to Venice there, your holidays. Michael, come with you. I'll come too, but me and Michael stay in the mainland, we'll have tea and coffee and stuff like that.
We'll check in on you once the screaming stops. So.
Here is an actual interesting picture here, right? And it's obviously an artist illustration because they didn't have cameras, right? So this one's quite interesting. What's your thoughts on that? Or what it used
Does
to
it
look
not
like?
look like one of the old steel factories? Just looking at it,
it does.
Which I think makes it look even more menacing. How cold that place is. But if you look at front with the gondolas of the people going by it, I mean, this was not that far off from Venice, for God's sakes, out there in the Venetian lagoon out there off the coast of Italy. People could see that. Can you imagine going by on a gondola and you're hearing people shrieking in agony there?
There you go. That's the map here. And here is a shot of it, and you can see how close it is to Venice.
Exactly. It's right there in the Venetian lagoon. I mean, it's right off the coast. So people, you would have to go out of your way to ignore what was going on there. It had to be their dirty little secret for centuries, I mean, you have to, again, going back to Napoleon doing the Napoleonic Wars, he saw it as a tactical, location for hiding weaponry at and munitions at, until it was discovered the island was attacked, and you had hundreds of people die again there on the island. That island was baptized in blood from its conception. Nothing but death and misery from the beginning. Death, misery, and madness from the beginning.
Yes.
If there was a way just to let that island drop into the ocean like Atlantis, never to be seen again, I think it would be best.
Well, the last photo I have is actually an artist's illustration of that doctor doing terrible things to patients. It's like what was done to patients there, and I think you'll find this interesting, Mike.
See, going into the head.
You've got a nun, obviously. Is that a nun in the top corner?
See, and then that was what was bad, because a lot of, and I'm going to use quotation marks around this, modern, during that time, what they considered modern medicine and modern psychiatric treatments went hand in hand with a lot of religious beliefs with the Catholic Church as well. Again, you're talking about Italy, you're talking about Rome, you're talking about the Catholic Church there. And the priests and nuns dealt with the religion. They were there to help heal the spirit, the soul, while the doctor was there to perform these ungodly, inhumane experiments to save their lives, to save their sanity. And they worked hand in hand. They paid witness to this shit that happened. And they didn't, they didn't condemn it because, they probably were paid well not to condemn it. They were paid well to hide that dirty little secret. So
yeah, and they're still hiding it. They're still hiding that secret
well,
to
dude,
this day.
you have to remember too. It was the church that was behind turning that into a plague island in the first place, and turning it into a plague colony in the first place. The church ran most of the governments then, and they were behind. A lot of this is true. In a lot of the European plague colonies, Asian plague colonies, even the one here in the United States, the one here in the United States on Molokai was started by Catholic priests. That were there, and nuns. They were created by the church at the time to help, heal the sick if they went there.
Yeah.
They were sent there to be preached to and died, and they died.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean,
sorry. Had to get off on my soapbox there for a minute.
That was weird. I heard somebody's voice there. Did you not hear that?
No.
That was at 50, I would say 50 minutes in. MD had heard that in the chat. That was weird. Because it was like someone that was agreeing with you.
Not surprised. There's so many, the air is so charged right now from these thunderstorms. It's giving things life around here that, typically would be a lot more, most things would be a lot more mellow, but during these powerful thunderstorms that we've been having, that elemental energy has been giving them a little bit more, making them a little bit more animated than they fucking should be.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think there's any evil entities on that island, or do you think there's any like elementals that are pissed off about how the island's been treated?
Madness is madness and despair considered evil? Or is madness and despair the seeds of evil that creates evil?
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the natural world that exists on that island, what little bit of the natural world that exists on that island, has been soaking up and been bathed in, centuries upon centuries of evil acts, of despair, of blood, of rage, of madness, true madness there as well. It's twisted. I know a lot of that plant life, I wouldn't consider it even natural anymore. After being twisted for all these centuries, it's become something more unnatural than natural. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to drink any tea made from tea leaves on that island, just to put it that way. No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it now in the old iPad there, and it's just got like, I don't know, it's got like a kind of warning feel about it. It's like, because I watched a video last night about where this guy was interviewing the fishermen that fish round about the island, and they're afraid that they'll catch any fish from around the island because of obviously how you were telling me about the flowers that have been growing or taking anything home from a graveyard. That's why they're afraid.
Because the fish are everything in the natural world is twisted by what's happened on that island, and that extends into the ocean around it as well. The funny thing about water is water itself is in both in the supernatural, paranormal world and in the natural world and in the regular world is the greatest and universal solvent. It dilutes negative energy. It can only go out so far from the island before it's diluted and dissipated by the water around it. And that's why, like you said, the fishermen don't get that close to the island because they don't want to catch fish that are close enough to soak up all this evil that's coming off of that island. All this despair and negativity that's just pouring off that island into the water around it.
Yeah. Would you ever like to go, Mike, to the island?
I would like to go and get a few bags of dirt.
Oh my God.
I know that it's I know. Okay, it's for two reasons. Commercially, I can grow pot in it and sell the pot. And three reasons. The second reason is as a practicing Hungan, to have soil like that, that's so charged soil like that would be great in various rituals and that I could do with it. It would also be a curiosity that I would put in a box to open up and look at on occasion, to remind me of how true evil can exist in this world and how it can permeate itself into the stones and the soil around us. Yeah. Plus the fact that it's 50% people. I mean, it's composted people, the topsoil is, for God's sake. So what the fuck? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus, tap dancing Christ. Exactly. Like I said, it probably grows some amazing pot. Some absolutely amazing pot. I could sell I would call it ghost pot or corpse pot or I'd have some fancy name for it.
Oh my God.
Dude, I would sell the Spectre pot. I would sell the Spectre bud. I would sell the shit out of that stuff. And I'm pretty sure that I can imagine the stuff you would see when you smoke it. It would be probably the most terrifying trip.
You've probably gave someone a great idea. They're thinking to themselves right now, they're thinking, gain something, that island, no one ever really goes there anymore. And especially the Burning Island, no one ever goes there. I'm going over there tonight in my own boat. There's wee plants.
And grow you some pot. Start your little colony of pot.
I know. But, I mean, I think eventually that island will disappear like Venice, because Venice is slowly starting to disappear.
It's slowly being swallowed up, Venice is. But, that's been happening for a very long time. But I think that island is probably got a life unto itself now. Yeah. All that misery is probably giving life to that island. I think that island, and that's what I would, in all honesty and all, bullshit to the side, that island is probably has I'm not going to say that it's sentient, but it's probably aware of you, that island is, when you step on that island. Because you cannot have that much human life, being absorbed by that island for it not to become more sentient, for something not to happen to that island itself.
I don't think it'll ever be clear of the souls. I mean, you could probably knock it down, you could probably dig it up and move the stuff and dump it in deep water, and that would still be there, the wee hump in the water would still be there, but I don't know what you know what,
Chris? I think if they ever tried doing that, I think something really terrible would happen to the people doing it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that island has a life of its own now, and I think it would do some really bad shit to people. It would make some really bad stuff happen. Yeah. And I would not want to be part of that crew that would go there, a demolition crew to go there and do that. Because I think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to, there'll be a lot more blood coming out of a lot more people watering the ground there if they went there with the intent of tearing it down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things, what do you do with something like that? It's in Venice, and Venice is obviously a major tourist attraction. Eventually the buildings are going to completely collapse, and it's got to become quite an eyesore. Right.
Well, somebody is going to end up buying that property.
Oh yeah.
Or investing in that property, and they're going to turn it into something. They're going to turn it into something, positive. They're going to try to turn it into something positive. Build an actual, because the island is so small, but you could still build a hotel out there. You could still build something out there, some kind of attraction out there to bring people there. And I think that island is going to eat up anybody who does that, who comes there.
Oh yeah.
That island is, and you know what? And rightfully so, because the people of Italy knew what was going on there. They knew what was happening there. They need to have that there to remind them of their past and to never let it happen again in the future. They need that constant reminder out there. Yeah. That turd in the punch bowl. They need that turd floating in the punch bowl to remind them of that.
Yeah. I'm just saying goodbye, Lisa. Lisa's on with me next. Lisa in the chat there, she's leaving. So, Lisa, we'll catch you next Saturday when you interview Barry Fitzgerald with me. There you go. But you're on next Sunday, Mike. You're on next Sunday. What's the subject for next Sunday?
Oh, fuck.
I'll give you a clue.
Oh, zombies. We're going to talk about zombies next week.
I was looking forward to that. I was honestly looking forward to that test you were taking in Twitter. Why don't you tell everybody about it? Maybe they can hop on.
The zombie hookers. I did a
great show.
I did a poll on what to talk about this week, and it looked like for a while. And I do have a story about zombie hookers. They are a real thing. By the way, zombies are real. They're not the Walking Dead type of zombies. But you'll hear more about that on the show next week with the show here next week.
Yeah.
Or whenever we're going to have it. Fuck. Whenever you see me talking about zombies. You'll get to hear about the types of zombies, both in my religion, the zombies in my religion, and the zombies and I actually met a couple of zombies, two types of zombies. I met them both, and they're not the Walking Dead type. They're not there to eat you. They'll fucking kill you, but they won't eat you.
It's going to be a very interesting interview.
It really is.
Because it's going to be
a fun show. The zombie show will be a lot of fun because I'm actually going to give it'll actually be a serious conversation about zombies and zombification. It's actually, when you hear about it, it will terrify you. It's going to scare the shit out of you when you hear about it. So
I'll need to download some pictures. Send me some and I'll download them.
Oh my god.
Them. Yeah. Send me some. And I'll download some.
You know what? I might still have some zombie powder.
And no, everybody, it's not going to be available in the Bonkers store.
No, you cannot snort this shit. I think I might still have a vial of it. I can show it. I can't tell you all the ingredients in it because I'm not allowed to tell you all the ingredients in it.
No,
but I can at least show it to you. It's some nasty shit, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It'll get you, it'll get you fucked up like Percocet, though, if you take it in small amounts. I do not recommend taking zombie powder as a recreational drug.
I'll turn on the TV and it'll be live CNN. Man takes zombie powder, runs through town naked with a pair of flip-flops on.
It will not turn you into stone test bunnies, guys. Just to let you know, it'll turn you into some, but it ain't good.
So, a question before we leave for tonight. What's the show this week on your show?
Shadow People. That's what everybody. The poll that I ran over the weekend. We're going to be talking about I'm going to be talking about Shadow People. Not talking about the bullshit you see on the Travel Channel. I actually had a very unfortunate encounter with Shadow People. Now, I'm saying people. I'm not talking about person. Notice I'm not saying person. This was a group of shadow people. And it scared the ever-living shit out of me. So
I bet you did.
With all my stories and all my experiences, there's always a twist. I'm not going to tell you the twist. You never hear the twist till the end.
So, Mike, do you want to plug your channel and plug your Twitter?
Well, I suck ass at promotion, but
you're great.
On YouTube, it's Mike the Naked Bigfoot, also known as What the Fuck Paranormal Chat. But if you go on YouTube, you'll see Mike. If you type in, or even if you Google Mike the Naked Bigfoot, you'll pull up my Twitter account, which is at VoodooMan3, Mike the Naked Bigfoot, or you'll pull up my YouTube account.
No.
Feel free to watch my YouTube account. Now, on my Twitter account, it goes from me talking about the paranormal and supernatural world and talking about what's going to be on my show to me talking shit or me making jokes or me talking about my garden or getting high. So you will be entertained by my Twitter channel. So, and the link to my to my YouTube channel. It's on my Twitter profile too, if you need help to find it.
Yeah.
But if you go to my YouTube channel, I have lots and lots of not lots and lots. I do have lots of videos.
Oh, yes, you do.
I do it in a very non-traditional format. But I'm sure there'll be something there that you will enjoy, and hopefully get you to come back to watch a few more. I do enjoy having people watch it, because it feels like that, my show's meant to be both informative and educational, and entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So you will be entertained, shocked, scared, horrified, but you'll go away hopefully a little bit more educated on the subject.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the Bald and Bonkers website, you will find our local page. You will find Mike's links there on our Bald and Bonkers website. All the links for his site, Yeah.
Do you dare enter the chamber of farts?
Yes. Enter the chamber and be doomed. Be doomed. Be doomed.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
So, do you want to take us out of the show with your usual? Do you want to take us out of your show?
Well, guys, as always, we want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight live and seeing us live. Me and Chris will love you a long time, folks. We love you a long time. Please come back on our next episode and watch us. For those who are watching the replay of this, I appreciate you so freaking much. Love having you watch, guys. If you like what you've seen, hit the subscribe button and the like button. If you have any constructive feedback, please leave the constructive feedback. We do like constructive feedback. If you want to be an asshole, that's you. That's on you, boo-boo. But we do take constructive feedback seriously, and it helps us improve our shows in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming out tonight, guys. Love you a long time.
I'll talk to you behind the scenes, Mike. Catch you later, everybody. Here's the theme.
1,